Welcome to Talking Buffalo, featuring conversations with guests from around the world of sports, media, pop culture, and all things Buffalo. With your host, Patrick Moran.
All right, what is going on, everybody? How you doing? Welcome to another episode of Talking Buffalo, your weekday daily driver for Buffalo sports talk and more. My name is Patrick Moran. Thank you very much, as always, for watching, for listening, for following, for subscribing. I appreciate y'all very much, especially on the video side. The numbers have been growing pretty rapidly of late, and
it's really, because I'm sexy. That's why. Let's go. Go ahead. Yeah.
Not even in the picture yet on the video side, but you can hear Joe from Queens. What a better time to bring in him right now. My man, Joe from Queens, who is now a regular again on the podcast, who's been doing, and
we'll see how long that lasts for.
I was going to say, hopefully we'll continue to do some of these Monday episodes with me. But anyway, man, what's going on? How you doing?
Monday. I'm tired. I got agita. I don't want to be here. No,
I give you a lot of credit too, because I kind of had to sweet talk you into this a little bit.
Oh yeah, sweet talk me. Here's what happened, everyone. Hey, Pat told me yesterday. He goes, "Hey, we're not doing a podcast this weekend because he has to get shit faced because it's his holiday weekend, St. Patty's Day, biggest holiday in Ireland's history or in Lackawanna's history, wherever the fuck you live." And he goes, "We're not having a podcast tomorrow or on Sunday." I'm like, "All right, cool, dude." Then this morning, like at 11 o'clock, 10, he goes, "Hey, you want to do one later tonight?" And I had energy at that point. I was like, "Yeah, sure, definitely." And then as a new father who is working West Coast hours from 1 to 9, and then we had no babysitter today around 8 o'clock. I was like, "Dude, I don't know if I could do this. I hate to do this." And then was there an ounce of, "Oh man, I understand." I was there once with your kids before. Was there any of that?
Guilt trip city.
No, nothing. Pat goes, "What did you say?" I should pull this up. I'm going to pull this up, actually, now that we're wasting time.
I would say something along the lines of, I'm paraphrasing a little bit here.
I'm going to read it to you.
If you can't, I said, if you can't do it, when I ask you, that's perfectly cool. I said, but if you say you're going to be able to do it.
Here's what I said, everyone. Here's what I said. "Can I be honest? I'm super tired. I don't want to do tonight. I'm super dead." Pat's response, "I want to kill you right now."
That is what
that's exactly. Here's the evidence, people. I want to kill you right now if you're on the video. That's what he said to me. So I'm like, okay, well, I guess I'll do it then. Sure, because Pat's gonna kill me if we don't, because everyone's dying to hear us 3 days after it drops or before it drops. But anyway, Tess, go ahead.
Let me preface that too. So this is important for people to know who are watching or listening to the show on Monday. Joe and I are taping this late on Friday, getting this in the can over the weekend. Yeah, so
it's like the NBA Finals in the 70s. It happened 3 days earlier, and we're going to drop it 3 days later.
I wanted to put that out there because of some crazy shit goes down with the Buffalo Bills. You're not going to let me get a sentence in, are you? You're going to take this.
I'm cranky.
You're taking this out on me already, man.
It's all right. Go ahead.
But no, seriously, we're taping this late Friday, and so this doesn't drop to Monday. So there's a chance for sure that something could go down with the Buffalo Bills that's not covered on this show today. And along to Joe's point, because he ain't lying, I could sit here and tell you, I'm going on a family weekend getaway with my wife, some romantic, brisk getaway.
Yeah, romantic. Chicken wings will be romantic for you.
I'm just straight up at St. Patrick's Day weekend here in Buffalo, New York. I am a person who really, really, really likes to celebrate St. Patrick's Day weekend. Got a couple friends who've come down from Florida. I'll be seeing them all weekend. Long story short, you're not wrong. I am going to be shit-faced all weekend long. So I'm going to be in no condition to take something on Sunday. Although it might be fun to see me do a podcast maybe in that condition that I expect to be in.
For the hundreds of people who are listening, I try to convince Pat he should do a St. Patrick's Day podcast where we just get drunk and we invite random people. He drunk dials everyone, because I'm sure you have a phone system, right? You can dial anyone on this thing. We just drunk dial everyone. We drunk dial Sal Capaccio. We drunk dial Joe Yerdon. We drunk dial people we don't like. We prank call WGR. Tone Pucks. We call his ass. And that would be awesome. But no, Pat doesn't want to do that because he's corporate Pat. Go ahead.
I'm corporate Pat. And you know what's funny too? I'm looking forward now. Again, this is really, really late in the Friday night, early Saturday morning, but I'm looking forward to back-to-back pulling back the little old school drinking. But truth be told, I probably will have my fill on Saturday, wake up Sunday on actual St. Patrick's Day, feel like shit, probably not get out of bed, stiff everybody, not show up to any of the places I'm supposed to go to, and probably just lay in bed all hungover all of Sunday. That would not surprise me at all.
What's the drink of choice this weekend? Are you just going to do the green beer?
I'll probably have a couple green beers, a couple whiskeys, but I'm not like, I don't do like, I'm Irish as hell, but like, I don't like Guinness. It's weird. I don't like corned beef and cabbage. I don't do any of that traditional stuff like that. I don't know. Just going to drink my normal regular beer. Just going to party and celebrate. I will wear green. I love Irish music. So, looking forward to it. But anyway, like I said, I just wanted people to know here, very long-winded manner too, that this is being taped a couple days at a time. And it kind of leaves me with, as we get into this. And
wait, hold on. I got to ask you something before we get into that. I'm sorry. This just popped in my head. Did your wife ever listen to your podcast? Like ever without telling you?
I think she wants me to think that she listens to the podcast. Well, I think what she does is watches a couple clips a week, because almost every episode I put out a clip.
Sure.
So I think she watches some clips. There might be a segment that she hears about from somebody, like whether it was a good or bad reason or whatever, and then she might lock into that. But on a regular everyday basis, like listening to it in the car on the way to work or at the office, hell no, I don't.
No, I forgot to mention this last week. So 2 weeks ago when I came back, my wife listened to me without telling me, and she was basically like, "You sounded miserable talking about being a father." And I was like, "What are you listening to my podcast?" So I just wanted to. If she decides to listen to this, I love being a father. It is amazing. It is breathtaking. It's awesome. I just love it. I love it.
Yeah.
That's it. So I just want to know, because like she's like, "Oh, I listened to it." I was like, "What?"
Well, she's keeping you in check, man. She's keeping you in check. You can't run wild on the show and say whatever you want.
Yeah, I can't talk shit about like.
I think I could get away with it.
Well, you have like 10 podcasts a day, so of course, like she's gonna have to like go through the archives, like it's going through like she's at the Library of Congress because you have so many episodes.
I wanted to have a discussion today, primarily about something that even if the Bills over the weekend were to be active, and even if they were to sign a couple of defensive players, I don't think it's going to change what I want the premise to be for today. And that's the Bills offense. You were on last week. You talked about the building an offensive doom. That's what you like to call it, an offensive
trademark
doom.
That, yes, offensive
trademark
doom.
That, sure.
Trademark it.
Adding weapons to the offense and drafting at least one, probably you said at least two wide receivers in this draft. And let's start with this, because since we talked on Monday, the Bills have added 3 new players, not counting their own re-signings to the roster. The linebacker from Philly, don't really need to talk much about him. I feel like he's that Terrell Dotson or AJ Klein replacement. Then the Bills, and again, this was after our show earlier last week, they signed Mack Hollins from Atlanta, a 4th or 5th receiver that looks like what he's been for most of his career. Although he in 2022 with Vegas had a really good year with Vegas. Went to Atlanta last year, didn't really do much. I talked about it with Anthony Marino. I actually do have a legitimate, strong Atlanta Falcons source. Okay. And I asked him about Mack, and he said, a couple explicit words, but really good effing player, good effing dude, lacked opportunities in Atlanta. But anyway, my point is this: probably your Trencher Field replacement, Deontay Hardy, different type of player, but your wide receiver 4, wide receiver 5. That's what I'm getting at here. Okay. So I'm like, well, that ain't changing nothing. They're just, replacing one bottom of the roster receiver with another. Then on Thursday, I feel like things really got shaken up some, because the Bills went out, and hours after they were linked to Eric Armstead, the big defensive tackle, and a brief tweet said that he was actually going to the Bills. Within just seconds, that caused an uproar. But anyway, the Bills end up signing Curtis Samuel. 3-year contract, $24 million, a chance to make up to 30, 15 of that guaranteed. That ain't no 1-year prove it deal money. That ain't no wide receiver 4 money. That's a contract consummate of somebody who is expected to contribute. So before we talk about like the draft, and I definitely want to talk about Diggs today too. What were your thoughts on the Bills signing 2 receivers? Maybe those guys specifically, how much you know about them now since they've signed, what other people have said, etc. What are your thoughts right now? Let's start there on those 2 additions to your offensive doom.
I don't care about the first wide receiver. He seems like a special teams guy. I know you talked about him a little bit on your. I actually saw a video clip of you and Marino, and you talked about.
Yeah.
You actually said something that I wanted to kill you for. So you talked about that you thought the depth chart was worse after Oliver and Jones to the defensive tackles than you thought Diggs and Gabe Davis were to Hardy, Sherfield, and other guys. I thought that was asinine because Jordan Phillips and Tim Settle at least started in this league. They've been guys who have played. Sherfield, Hardy have not done nothing. I don't even know what they did before. I mean, I know Hardy had like one okay year with the Saints. I thought that was weird. I would not. I was like, I wanted to kill you at that pose because you were discrediting the offensive doom philosophy that I want, and I was like, no, there's no way you can say that at that. Now it's either here and there because both those guys, Phillips and Settle, already signed somewhere. I forgot where he's at. He went somewhere.
Houston. He went to Houston for 2 years.
So now but I thought that was stupid. But anyways, I digress.
Well, can I jump in there before? Because I still want to get your opinions on these receivers.
Sure.
But I want to say this to your point. If you don't know what Joe's talking about, essentially I said that I thought the drop-off last year when Ed Oliver and Daquan Jones weren't on the field was worse than when Gabe Davis and Stefon Diggs, but primarily Gabe Davis wasn't on the field and they had to go with Hardy or Sherfield. Pretty much that's it because they really didn't have anyone else. Shakir already had a slot role carved out regardless. Because I think, a take, I'll give you a take. I'll be honest with you. Tim Settle, Poona Ford, Linval Joseph were all garbage for the Bills. They're not garbage players. They're certainly good guys, but they were garbage for the Buffalo Bills. Jordan Phillips had a couple good plays, and then he had a couple Jordan Phillips plays where he whiffs on tackles or absolutely absurd, stupid personal foul penalties. The defensive tackle depth on this team last year was garbage, and they don't have any defensive tackle depth right now. Anyway, go ahead. Back to your point.
I think for me, I look at it more of who's going to be on the field. I feel like, 3-4 wide receiver sets, they do play that sometimes, that you have to go to those guys. Whereas Settle and Phillips, they have that stupid defensive line rotation, which they need to have 7 or 8 guys. I just thought it was a bigger hole at the wide receiver, like a 3 through 5, than it is at the 3 and 4 defensive tackle situation. And let's not forget the Chiefs game in the playoffs. The defensive line with your boys up front got run off the field. And with those wide receivers back there, Sherfield had 2 drops that could have changed. That he catches one of those, it changes the game. So, but look, the Hollis guy, I don't know. I don't really have an opinion. He seems like a special teams guy. I'm trying to grasp the straws here with him and with the Raiders. Like, he was there with McDaniels and when they had Carr there. I don't know any parallel.
2 years ago.
Yeah, I don't know any parallel. Like, oh well, I can go with that because Joe Brady coached, right? The new guy that I got dad brain, so I'm going to be bad with names tonight, people. But I don't care about him. But Samuel, I like. He seems like a gadget play, or in terms of like he can do a lot of different things. He even though his numbers don't show like he can stretch the field, he's a fast guy. So it seems like he can do that if he wanted to. And he catches a lot of underneath stuff. I'm fine with that. I don't want to say I was ready to be angry or anything like that. But I was getting a little testy a little bit with, I don't need to re-up defensive linemen. Like they're not listening to my offensive doom philosophy.
No, they weren't at all.
They weren't at all. And I was like, give me a wide receiver, at least show me, if there's one thing I'm jumping around, like I took from the first week of free agency, it was that, how do I say this? People get very like weird about talking about depth guys on Bill's content zone and on Bill's Twitter, like just, I don't know, overdoing it or being a little bit defensive. So, you mentioned the linebacker. Let me get off my chest. You mentioned the linebacker that they signed.
Nicholas Morrow. Yeah.
Morrow. So I have 2 very good friends who are giant Eagles fans. Okay. And I've known them for like 20 years. So I asked them, hey, can you tell me about this guy? Because I saw like he started 12 games right away. I was like, oh, wow, he started last year. I'm like,
and he wore a green dot. He wore the green dot too, meaning he was calling plays. Yeah.
Yeah. So I asked them and I'm like, hey, is this, what'd you think of this guy? My one friend was like garbage. And the other guy was, I agree. And I tweeted that out. I don't know if you saw that because I don't know if you don't follow. You did. And then all of a sudden, like I got a couple of cover one guys, the same ones. And I like Aaron and Greg. They're frenemies, we'll just call them, being like, well, you know, you don't know, like kind of like being like, well, you don't know what system he's going to go into, and like being like really defensive about this guy. I was like, dude, like, who wouldn't ask like a friend of theirs who watches those games and goes, hey, what do you think of this guy? And I was like, I'm like, who cares? Like, and the funny thing was, those guys did say to me, my friends from Philly were like, he's fine as a depth guy. Just don't hope he doesn't play. Basically, is kind of what they said to me. Like he makes tackles. So, and like, just sometimes I just don't get the whole, every move doesn't have to be the smartest move they make. They could just be just a fucking move and move on. Like,
sure.
You know, and I get it. Like, I get part of it is, hey, it's like some of you guys in the Bills, that's what you do. You have to put content up. And I don't know. There's just moments where I'm like, why bother talking about like this being a smart move or the fifth wide receiver? And maybe it's just, I get it, like you have to, but at the other time, like who cares? Like
fans of teams, Joe. I think fans of teams, if they're objective about it, can be a good source for an honest opinion. Doesn't mean that they're right or wrong.
Sure.
It's just opinion. You know, I would say that about you. I'll give you a compliment here. I think if somebody were to ask you about a Bills player specifically, I think you would give them an objective opinion. Doesn't mean that I think your opinion is right on that player, but I think you would do it objectively and not just say, you know, because you're mad that guy left your team or whatever, that guy sucks. Which, by the way, for what it's worth, to your friend's point, I talked to Les Bowen, who's covered the Philadelphia Eagles for more than 2 decades. I asked him specifically about him, and he said he was a disappointment and awful in coverage, you know, pretty good against the run, you know, had a pretty good PFF grade, this and that, but he was awful in pass coverage. I just think of him as he's Tyrell Dodson. He's A.J. Klein. And yeah, you hope Matt Milano and Terrell Bernard stay healthy, or you hope Dorian Williams takes that next step. So even if one of those guys go down, you got Dorian Williams. I think Morrow will be that fourth linebacker competing with maybe Daniel Spector and playing special teams. So,
but don't you think some of this stuff though is like annoying to talk about? Like, why is it? I don't know. I just feel like on Bills X, it gets a little bit of a like, you better like this player coming here, or like everything's smart. Like it's just, and I just look. I have a very good. You said like one of my better qualities is I'm objective. I don't know about that. Maybe sure, fine. Everyone, no one's going to say they're biased, but if anything, I'm the guy who will say like I was wrong about this.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've seen so many guys come here like Sherfield, Hardy, settle, and like everyone like is on like, oh, great signing, good signing, like media fans who have influence, and then it's like they're not good, and then they don't go back and go, maybe I should just take a pill instead of
I think you're right.
Instead of being like, oh, hey, this was a great smart signing, because I think people don't hold them accountable. That's where I'm good at, because I'll hold people accountable and be like, yo, you were wrong about this, and I'm wrong too.
But you are right, Joe, because I agree with you when you say, you know, every sign doesn't have to be a good one. You don't have to say right off the bat, I really like this guy. It could just be meh. But at the same token, to say that this guy sucks or he's nothing or whatever, he's going to be a bum or whatever, that's, you know, it's the same thing, just on the opposite end. Just kind of, you got to wait to see how it plays out. There are some players, I think, who shine when they leave and they go to another team, or there's some players who are really good. They go get that payday and then they go to another team and they don't pan out. I think that happens all the time in free agency. These guys go get big money. They're in a different system, different players, different scenario, and then they kind of wash out after a year or two, and they end up getting cut, even after signing a 5-year deal.
Yeah.
So anyway, but these receivers, Curtis Samuel. All right, and by the way, Mack Hollins. The one thing I don't think you mentioned about him that I do like is his body. He's 6'4", and he's a good run blocker, and the Bills like good run blockers. You know, Gabe Davis was a good run blocker. Trent Sherfield was a pretty good run blocker as well. They don't have that. Stefon Diggs ain't blocking nobody. Khalil Shakir is not a good linebacker. They didn't sign Curtis Samuel to block somebody. So I think you'll see some of him out there, like in that maybe that 12 personnel when they're going to want to run the football a lot more. I mean, he could catch the ball. Again, in Vegas 2 years ago, 57 catches, 690 yards. So he has had some success, but I think he's primarily a run blocking special teams guy. Again, you're probably your fifth receiver. Curtis Samuel to me, though, is interesting, Joe, because I like him. He's explosive off the line. He's quick. Does a lot of things, but he's primarily has been a slot guy. And the first thought was, well, that's interesting because Samuel's played I think 74% of his snaps over the last 2 years have been from the slot. And then Khalil Shakir has played 77% of his snaps last year from the slot. So you said last week that you don't think Khalil Shakir is as good as a lot of people think he is. And I don't know if the Bills agree with that or if it's part of a bigger story right now.
I mean, I view football when you're building a team. I do look at where a guy was slotted in the draft. And if they're kind of in that, have they proven themselves more? And we talked about proving yourself. Mm-hmm. I'm more of, you got to prove yourself for like a year, a season. Now, if you're like a first rounder or second rounder, you might be able to get away with, hey, I proved myself for like 6-7 weeks. And like, you prove yourself because I think there's like a wheel of, I want this guy to prove themselves because we drafted him so high. Mm-hmm. Whereas if you draft a guy like in the 5th round, do you really care? Like, I mean, when I say that, you're not invested in that guy. Right. Because he's a 5th rounder. And like, you're like, oh, okay, yeah, it's nice that he did that. But can we do better? Like let's try to do better because it's not a giant investment. And they might want to like, maybe they view one of those guys, they can put him on the outside. Like both of them are kind of fast. And I look, I'm not, I think sometimes maybe we get caught up with the Bills a little bit, or maybe you think of Cole Beasley in that slot. And Cole Beasley could never play on the outside. He's not fast enough. He's not going to do a goal route. Right. And I think maybe those other two guys, I think, are pretty fast. I think Shakir's pretty damn fast for a guy like, he's shifty. Not like, he's quick. He's shifty. Like, you don't have to have like a giant burner on the outside. Like they can swap it around and they can, like I said before, they can go 3-4 wide receiver sets, or God forbid you have depth at wide receiver. And like, if someone gets hurt, you put Shakir in. So we'll see where they have him lined up. This year he might, he may not end up being, I don't want to say, like he could end up being like Robert Foster, where a guy had a really nice end of the season, and he's kind of like, hey, we'll see what happens with him. And then like, not saying he's going to fall off the face of the planet like he did, but you don't have that investment as much as you did there. And people look, I get it. Like Shakir, I'll bet my rent that in the summer, Justin Short's going to get he's going to get a lot of hype in training camp probably, and that's Shakir had the same thing. That's why I'm skeptical of him, or I've been a dick about him a little bit, because a lot like Bill's ex was like, you guys loved him like out of training camp last year, like everyone did, and I was like, why? I mean, I'm again maybe because I don't have an IV to the draft, and like I know a lot of people had him like going in the 3rd round. He fell in the 5th, and then that's when you kind of tend to like be like, yeah, look at this guy. But I was just like, you got to show me more, and I think that's why, like. I think Samuel's better than he is right now as a player. He's got a better resume,
He definitely has a better resume for sure.
And he's done it. This is the one thing I think is kind of exciting is he's coming here with Josh Allen, whereas before he did not have great quarterbacks.
Bums. He played with a lot of bums.
Yeah, I mean he had Cam Newton at the end of Carolina. I don't think he had.
That was Cam Newton, but the Cam Newton that was starting to get hurt. Going to read off his list, I have it in front of me. There's a list of quarterbacks that Curtis Samuel has played with prior to now to Josh Allen and after Cam Newton. It's Kyle Allen, Will Greer, Teddy Bridgewater, B.J. Walker, Ryan Fitzpatrick. Far and away the best of that group. Taylor Heineke, Carson Wentz, and Sam Howell. Not good.
Yeah,
at
not
all.
great. Not great, Bob.
No, it's not.
Yeah. But and then he didn't. I would say he didn't play with a guy like Stefon Diggs, which I think can help him out. Like he didn't. I don't like Washington. I mean, they had what's the one guy, McLaren, I think his name is
Terry McLaren.
Yeah, like Washington. He's all right, but he's no Diggs. But like he's.
Ooh, don't let Aaron Quinn hear you say that.
Oh, I like McLaren, but he's not Diggs. He's not as good as Diggs.
Right, I agree. You're right.
Yeah. Screw you, Aaron, if he's not listening. But anyways, yeah. So I think that's an interesting thing. Now we'll see what happens. I know this isn't like a good I was excited about Crowder coming to Buffalo because I was like, oh, he had Darnold, he's gonna have Allen, and obviously things didn't work out. He got hurt, and we never saw him again. So yeah, look, I'm happy they went out and got. I said to you a couple weeks ago, like, hey, I think they're going to do defense. Maybe they'll sign a marginal wide receiver in free agency, and then they'll go all in on the draft and wide receiver. But I was happy they gave a decent deal to someone.
Yeah,
it shows that they're getting there. They're getting closer to offensive doom. They're getting a little closer.
They're getting close. They are getting closer.
It took them 8 years to figure it out, because they were drafting 800 defensive linemen. But yes, they're getting close.
I got to give a couple people some credit here. I got to give Tone Bucks a little bit of credit on the show last week.
Okay,
he was insistent that the Bills were going to sign somebody from the outside to at least a $6 million or more contract. I said, there's no way they're going to do that. They did. So Curtis Samuel, so props to him. And also, I can't steal this idea, this thought, because ever since Curtis Samuel signed, again, my first thought was, well, what's going to happen with Khalil Shakir? And I still feel that way because I'm really high on Khalil Shakir. I thought he impressed. I thought he made some really, not just plays, but a lot of clutch plays down the stretch last year for the Bills. But anyway, here's my point. We all think that the Bills, they got to have, so you got Stefon Diggs, a kind of a shifty, do everything type of receiver. Then you got a pure slot guy like Khalil Shakir. Now you got a guy who can play in the slot. He can play outside a little bit. He also can run the football. He lines up in the backfield sometimes. And you're like, all right, well, you need that Gabe Davis type. You need that big-bodied boundary type receiver. And Joe Marino from Locked On Bills, I was listening to him last week, brought up a really good point about Samuel and Josh Allen. And he said that throughout Josh Allen's career, his best success has come to throwing the football to Stefon Diggs and Cole Beasley and John Brown, washed up John Brown. And he's had those big receivers like Gabe Davis, and his numbers when throwing to Gabe Davis haven't been as good. You get stuck on that one playoff game. And before that, he was a rookie and all, but like Kelvin Benjamin, just some of these bigger receivers, not necessarily what Josh does the best. Josh is best with guys that are quick, shifty, and can get separation and get open short, kind of pick you apart, death by 1,000 cuts. Then eventually, of course, they'll go over the top. I thought that was a good point. We're all sitting here thinking, where's the 6'4", 225-pound, big boundary receiver? I'm not 1,000% sure now that that's coming. And maybe it shouldn't. I never thought of that. So I got to give, again, that's not my thought. Joe Marino.
It's an interesting point, but it's not, they haven't brought that many guys in. That's the problem. Well, like Gabe
Shorter's
Davis.
That guy right now. Justin Shorter's their big body guy.
Yeah, but he's what is he, a 6th rounder? Don't talk about it. No, I'm not. I don't want to bring his. No.
I'm not going there with Justin Shorter. Not now.
Okay, but I'm just saying they haven't brought that guy really in to and that's like Kelvin Benjamin was supposed to be that guy, and that guy was a slug, and he was terrible, and it didn't work out. Blah blah
right.
blah. Right. Yeah. So look, we'll see what they do. It's going to be interesting because I'm really curious to see how Brady is with this, because you have a lot of different matchups you can go out there, in terms of you could do 2 tight ends, you could do 3 wide receivers, 4 wide receivers, maybe.
Samuel played for him. Samuel's best year of his career.
Yeah, best year came with him and Bridgewater.
Joe, yep. So
it's going to be interesting to see how many variations they have, and it's good. Look, I was happy with it. I can't. I don't know. I read the rundown for a half. Well, no, you didn't even give me a rundown. You just told me on Facebook. I don't even get a rundown anymore.
For what? For today's?
Yeah, because you said you want to talk about the draft and
Well, I do. I do. And where will the
Bills go in the first or whatever? It changes. It changes a little bit for me. But go ahead.
It does. I kind of laughed, and again, I got nothing against Nicholas Morrow because that's what he is. He's a special teams backup linebacker. But I'm like, Joe wants offense, and they're re-signing DeQuan. They're re-signing Taylor Rapp. They're re-signing AJ Epinesa. They're re-signing Cam Lewis. I'm like, oh boy, It's not really doing anything.
You know, the AJ Epinesa deal was interesting to me because it's just like
the what?
The AJ Epinesa deal was just.
I like it.
It was fine, but it was like, you're doing what I don't want you to do, like, which is, we need to have defensive line depth, and they played a pretty decent amount of money for a guy who is supposed to be a backup. Like, he's a guy, and this is why I was joking this with I forgot who I was joking this with, but someone might have been you actually, but like, no, it was, I know who it was. I was joking, like, if McDermott coached like the 90s Bills, he would probably have Bruce Smith on like a 65% snap count. Because he's like, we got to get all the defensive players on the field. Like, we got to get Leon Seals and Mike Lodish on the field. Because we got to save Mark Pike. We got to put him in. Because we got to save Bruce for the fourth quarter. Like, I'm like, why? Like, can't we just have like 4 defensive linemen and like a pass rush specialist and a fat guy who comes on the field and like, and that's it. But instead they're like, I'm like, oh, here comes AJ Epinesa. They're gonna do him, and they had a visit. They had a visit today from a Chargers guy. Some guy I forgot his name. Did you see that on Twitter?
No, and by today you mean Friday, which is old
Friday.
news by Monday.
Day, I believe his name was Joseph Day.
There's a Sebastian. I don't even know.
Yeah, so they had. So they had.
Anyway, if it's who I think you're talking about, he's a good player, actually.
Yeah, but I'm saying. And like, yes, he is. I mean, I'm not going to pretend I've watched all his film because I haven't watched any film except porn. But in terms of him, like, that's just them. They're like, we have to get so many defensive linemen. Like, why? I mean, I just wish I wish, because, and again, the Samuel thing put me back, because if they didn't get him, I would have came on here being like, man, you guys, we have to have all these defensive linemen. We can't have.
What happens, Joe? What happens if, all right, so this went down on Thursday. What happens if, for a brief moment, Diana Rossini tweeted that the Bills were signing Eric Armstead, okay? And Twitter exploded in like 30 seconds. I didn't see her tweet at the moment. I saw Joe Biscaglia retweet it like literally 5 seconds later. And then, of course, Rappaport says that he's going to Jacksonville. Diana deletes that tweet and then comes right back and says her mistake, her bad, which whatever. Mistakes happen. I don't hold her accountable for any. That's not her fault. Shit happens, man. Anyway, my point is this. What would your reaction be right now if they sign Eric Armstead? Because if they sign Eric Armstead, they ain't signing Curtis Samuel. I'll let you in a little secret. And then I'll give you a nugget about Armstead afterwards. But what would your reaction been, you and your offensive doom, if they go out and they sign a pretty studly, quite frankly, a stud type of defensive tackle?
No, I would have probably been a little perturbed because what about the offense? But then I would have talked myself into, all right, this wide receiving class is not great in free agency, and it kind of proves it. Like, one guy got paid, and I mean, that's a question. But I would be a little bit annoyed. But then I would say it would basically be like if I would go to Radio City Music Hall, wherever the hell the draft is this year. I forgot. This is a different location now, but I would go there. And if Goodell announced the Bills are taking a safety, an edge rusher, I would storm the stage when Goodell's about to hug that player and attack Goodell. So I'd be like, nope, you're not drafted, you're not here. Where's the next wide receiver? Like, so get him up here with that would have been like, you better draft a wide receiver in the first, the second round. I would have lost it. Like, if that was if they didn't like. And again, it is a little bit about the defense. Would have been like, come on, people. But
if they would have signed Armstead and then drafted a defensive end in the first round,
or safety, you could have.
It would have been.
I would have.
Our podcast would have been pay-per-view worthy. I could have charged people money to listen to you go off.
I would have commandeered the StreamYard, whatever the hell the site is we're doing it. I would have commandeered it and just be like, I'm dropping Talking Buffalo right now and talking shit about what happened. But alas, they don't have to do that. No. I'm not going to do that because they did. It's interesting because, like, obviously they probably weren't going to do both, I'm assuming, with Armstead. But maybe they would have found money. Who knows? The cap is funny with the It's funny with the cap.
They weren't close with Armstead. They were not close with Armstead. I talked to somebody who I trust with knowledge of that situation. A lot of the reports were true. The Buffalo Bills were indeed in on Eric Armstead. Eric Armstead's first choice indeed was the Buffalo Bills, but they were not, from what I was told by somebody who I believe fully, that the money was not close.
The
Like
limo driver.
it wasn't like it was really close and he had to make a really tough decision. He wanted to come to Buffalo. Buffalo wanted him back, but when they talked dollars, it wasn't even close to Jacksonville. 3 years, $51 million. So it wasn't even like he had a sleepless night trying to figure out what he was going to do.
Right.
Just the money was not close. That's all I'm saying. So,
okay.
Anyway, all right. So here's what I do. I'm gonna take a quick break. We talked about the draft a little bit here. Tease it anyway. Coming back, I from the break, I do want to talk about the draft because maybe not, but maybe signing Curtis Samuel might have changed that. So we'll be right back. All right, I am back here with Joe from Queens. Again, we are taping this very late into Friday night. So you're hearing this Monday or on YouTube, you'll be hearing this.
I got 10 minutes, man, because I'm about to fall asleep. So let's do this. Come on. You can see us on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram. Follow us all.
I'm not gonna waste my time and energy or waste your time and energy asking you if you think signing Curtis Samuel should change the Bills' draft priority. But what I am going to ask you is, do you think this move does change the Bills' draft priority, which for you is obvious. You want a wide receiver no matter what in the first round. Does the addition, not really Mack Hollins, but Mack Hollins and Samuel, 2 receivers. Now you got Diggs. You still got Shorter, which, I know Shorter, you don't think much of him right now, and I understand why. And then Shakir, you got 5 guys right now. They're going to draft a receiver, but is drafting a wide receiver in the first round? Do you think that's their hell-bent priority? Has that changed? Do you think it's changed because they have now added Curtis Samuel?
I don't. It makes things interesting. It makes things interesting. I keep thinking, so let's look at the wide receiver thing. And look, the wide receiver, it shouldn't just be about this year. It should be about down the road. When you're thinking about first rounder, like how long is Stefon Diggs going to be here? You need an heir.
We're going to talk about him in a minute.
I know. I think now is the time you kind of need an heir apparent. Now, if you draft a guy in the first round, he needs to play right away. He should play right away. And like, hey, if you have 3 wide receivers, you have your top 3. If you decide to just do 11 personnel, and then they tell Shakir, like, go return punts, buddy, until like someone gets hurt. So like that's how I can visualize it. But again, this is the Bills. They love defensive linemen.
Yeah.
And DaQuan Jones is he's older. They want to keep people fresh.
Vaughn,
that's their thing. They
35, and they don't got Leonard Floyd this year.
Yeah. So they want to keep. I mean, that's like that to me is where they could go. They could also do the safety. Like, this is like their first year without Poyer or Hyde. And I could see them doing that. I could definitely see them doing and look, they were probably going to do it. They always say that. I always hate when the NFL GMs are like, they're always going to say we took the best player available. They're never going to say, oh, we reached for this guy. You'll never, ever hear that unless it's you won't. They never will. Like, unless they get fired, then maybe they'll say something. But I can see them like it now lessens it a little bit, even for me a little bit. Like, hey, maybe I would prefer a first round wide receiver, but if they want to go in the second round, I can do that too. But we know this team. We've seen that this is year 8 or whatever the hell it is right now of the McBeane era, and they love defensive linemen. And right now it's still like for them. Again, I wish they could go and just get 4 guys and old school, like that's it. And then hey, we got 2 depth guys and call it a day. But no, they want to. That's why the AJ Epinesa, like the guy had 35% of the snaps last year. Like I'm like, all right, like guess we need fresh bodies. And
I'd love to see a case study, Joe, of 31 other teams and their snap percentage for, say, their top 7 defensive linemen compared to Buffalo. I do agree. I do think Buffalo rotates their defensive line more than most, for sure. I'm certainly not disputing that point. And you're right. I do think defensive line is very much in play, especially after signing Samuel for a first round pick. Look, I think right now, safety at this moment, as we tape this, safety and defensive tackle depth are probably bigger needs right now than wide receiver for the Buffalo Bills. Especially, I say defensive tackle depth because of who the coach is. Like, you're wasting your energy if you're saying Sean McDermott needs to play Ed Oliver and DaQuan Jones 75% of the snaps. It's just not going to happen. You know what I mean? As long as he's that coach, it's not going to happen. So, but then you look at the draft, and I know you're not a mock draft guy. You don't know a lot of these prospects yet, and I'm just starting to dive in myself. I don't know that there's a safety that's a first round safety right now. So that's part of the problem. You said you don't want to reach. I don't know of many defensive tackles around that range. I know there's one that's going to be a top 15 pick for sure, but I don't know, man. I do think because of Curtis Samuel, things are a little more up in the air now than they were on Thursday, for sure. One other thought too. Do the Bills still, let's say the Bills do still draft a wide receiver in the first round. Okay. Let's just say that happens.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think it has to do largely, if they were, with the fact that that guy might ultimately replace in 2025 Stefon Diggs, just the same as drafting a defensive end and, can replace Von Miller after this year, or defensive tackle can replace DaQuan Jones after this year? Like, I think that might be as much of a reason why the Bills could take a wide receiver still in the first round as anything else. Brandon Beane looking to get something out of the guy in year one, but, more importantly, getting a cost control guy for another 4 years after that with Stefon Diggs, which just, I don't know how to feel about Stefon Diggs anymore. I got to be honest.
Are you being creeped out by his tweets?
Yes.
What did he tweet today again?
He tweeted on Friday. He tweeted something about ready for what he said, ready for whatever. Just more cryptic stuff. You know what he's really good at too? He's good at getting you talking. He's fueling the fire, making you think, but he doesn't say anything negative. Like, if you were to say, well, Stefon doesn't love this team, he doesn't want to be here. Well, when did he say he's going to say, when the hell did I ever say that? And he's not wrong either. You know what I'm saying?
Look, he just likes to mess with people. Look, he went, as I said, he went through Super Bowl week, and he said he wanted to be here to
I know
numerous, there was 3% of where you could sit there and go, oh, 3% of what he said here, he may not want to. I'm done reading the tea leaves.
You just think he's a shitster a little bit on Twitter?
I think he's he likes us to stir shit up, and he likes to do that, or he might be talking about something else. Who knows? I'm not tripping out yet. I'm just gonna wait it out until there's a report. Until there's a report, or someone comes in and they're like, oh, hey, this sort of thing happened, he wants out, or any of that. I'm not tripping anymore. We went through a year of this last year where it was just it was just all this weird and I thought it was mostly media driven and some fan driven stuff, but I'm not going through it. I'm just not, unless I'm not going to trip out about.
I think it's out there. I think it's out there, and I think it's going to stay out there. I think it might get bad again at some point too, maybe during the off
well, I'm sure it will get leaked out. I feel like something will come out. It's funny. I think I said, I don't know if I told you, Stephen A. Smith said something earlier this week that he thought something was going to happen with him again. And I was like, well, do you know something? Do you talk to his agent and blah, blah, blah. But I don't know. They do have to consider the heir to him at some point, because look, he is older.
That's what I'm saying. Does drafting a receiver in part would it have to do with, in part at least, because you got Samuel?
Totally.
Let's just throw a name out there. Adonai Mitchell. That's a guy who's a big body guy. He's a Gabe Davis lookalike almost in terms of physical presence. This guy's a burner, a big body guy. Let's just say for fun, the Bills draft him. Okay. You got Diggs, you got Mitchell, you got Kincaid, you got Shakir, you got Samuel, you got James Cook. They like to run the ball, blah, 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 blah. There's only one football. I don't know that a rookie is going to come in here. I'd like to see it. I know you love seeing rookies start too. I get it. I'm not sure any rookie is going to come into this offense and be too productive early on. If everybody who's on this roster right now,
I don't know, because I think you're overrating Shakir again. You think he has to get on the field. He doesn't have to get on the field. He doesn't. They can just
I don't think I'm overrating him, but it's not even that. They play a lot of 12 personnel. So now you got Kincaid and Knox and 2 receivers.
Well, why do you, so now you think they're going to do, because I asked you you probably don't remember it, but like I asked you a couple weeks ago, I said like I did think they were going to do more 12 personnel, but if memory serves me, they kind of dumped 12 personnel this year at the end, right? They went to 11 personnel. They did a lot of that.
Yeah.
They did. And so I don't know what they're going to do next year. I deep down think they want to have a lot of different looks. I think Joe Brady wants to have different guys. Look, Joe Brady had Stefon Diggs play third, was third on snaps for that one game against New England for wide receivers, which I thought was stupid weird, but whatever. That tells me, unless they hate Diggs, which I don't think that's the case, he wants to give them the offense a lot of different looks. I think that's what they want to do. They want to have different packages. They want to have 3-4 wide receivers. They want to have 12 personnel. They don't want it to be where it's just 3 wide receiver sets and that's it. They want to keep teams off balance. It sounds good on paper. We'll see what happens. But yeah, I would having it change it up every week, I'm fine with, as long as they score points. And I'm all for the weapon. Give me again. I'm still on team offensive doom. With a rookie playing, like, look, we don't know how they're gonna. I think they should, but there are, Sean McDermott's off when it comes to rookies. There's some guys that play, some guys that don't. It's really hard to get a gauge on it sometimes. Like Elam, we all thought was starting from day one. He didn't. Okay, we thought he was starting from day 2 the following year. He didn't.
And he started year 3 either.
yeah. Well, we just went through year 2, right? Yeah, he was a rookie last year. Yeah, so he was 2 years in. But anyways, there are guys who don't. AJ Epinesa didn't really get on the field that much, like this first couple years. He was a second rounder, but still, like he didn't get on. Like, but then you have other guys. You have Rousseau. He played a lot as a rookie. Ed Oliver didn't play a lot as a rookie. He was. I think didn't play a game a couple different times. Right. So we don't know. I don't know what they're going to do. They might want to be like, hey, we want to slowly bring him on and see what happens. But it shouldn't. It shouldn't. I would go with offense. I still believe in that you win in this league with offense. You win in this league with wide receivers, playmakers. That has been the thing that they have lost the last 2 years in the playoffs. I feel like they lack that. I don't think it's about defensive linemen. Okay, like you got AJ Epinesa back, maybe you get one more guy and then call it a day, people.
I want to be real clear here. Sure. I still would prefer for the Bills to draft a wide receiver in the first round. Curtis Samuel has not changed that. I just want to be clear with that.
Sure.
I want to go back to Stefon Diggs, though, because it's so perplexing to me because he's such a good football player. I mean, he played really bad down the stretch this past season. That's not even, something that we could debate. But this guy has been in Buffalo now for 4 years. He's had 100 catches or more all 4 of his seasons here in Buffalo. Mm-hmm. Joe Brady took over midseason. He has an entire offseason now to figure out how he wants to best utilize Stefon Diggs. I'm not sold. It's so weird because half of me is like, I'm not sold that this is Stefon Diggs' final year. Everybody's starting to talk about it like it's a foregone conclusion that this might be his last year because next year they could cut him post June 1st and they would eat $18 million in dead cap space, but they would also save $18 million, or they can cut him early and only save 8 and eat 22. Mm-hmm. Point is, he's much more cuttable after this season. But I'm like, why? But I do think, Joe, and look, this is just my gut feeling. All right. We all have our opinions. I think he's genuinely, I don't want to say he hates being in Buffalo, but I genuinely wonder if he would like to be somewhere else because, and I don't understand why. I don't think it's not Josh Allen, and anything they have beef with Josh. It's not that he don't like playing with Josh. I don't think it's because of the city. I don't think he dislikes living in Buffalo. I don't think it's because of the fans. I don't think he has any problem with the fans. The media, kind of, a cold relationship with them. I truly think that Stefon Diggs has some beef that's been lingering for probably 2 years now with this organization. The coaches, the front office, I don't know what it is.
But what's it based off?
He doesn't want to be here.
But what's it based off? What?
I don't know.
Of tweets?
I don't know.
I think this is my hot take. I think there's drought brain, and then there's like Buffalo insecurity brain, where it's always going to go bad for a star player is going to want to get out of here. I think that is a little bit here. Like there is not been that much evidence, but I think there is always that like with the Bills, like, oh, this guy wants to leave because he's too small of a fish or big. It's too small of a pond. Where the fuck that's
he's too big of a fish for the small little pond.
Yeah, and he wants a bigger. And I think that has gone that way for a lot of fans. Like I think they think that. I mean, I remember like years ago, people were weirded out because Rob Johnson lived in a hotel instead of living here year round. I was like, who gives a shit?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and like I think like there's I think it creeps into people's heads a little bit, where there's like I don't want like a little bit of that inferiority complex, if you will, and I think it's getting into your head a little bit here. Like I think you just think he wants to go. Like what if we were like
I don't know that he wants.
What if we were? But I'm saying like what if we were a star? Look, the Bills they're not Dallas or Philly. Like, you know, a brand, like a really top tier branded team in a big city. Like, if we were, would you be thinking that? Or would you be like, oh, he probably, why would he want to leave like a big city? And like, you know, and I think that's where this is coming from because it's what else is there? There's not much evidence. He's
an eccentric person. That's the thing. That's not an insult. He's an eccentric person. He's hard to figure out. He just likes to be ambivalent about his things. What he says, it's hard to get a grasp on.
I think, as I said, I think there have been things that I think have been blown out of proportion. I think it's even with the shrugging thing with Josh Allen last offseason, and you know, I think there are people who definitely, as I said this a couple different times, like in the media, who just didn't like him, and they're just been fanning that flames. There's not been that much evidence that we've seen. There's not been a guy. It would have got it. This is my opinion. Of course, everything's my opinion. What the fuck do I have to say? It's my opinion. If he wanted out, he would have told someone. He would have told an ESPN person. He would have told someone. It would have gotten out that he's not happy. And it would have been a report. It would have been out there. I think what it is he is a guy that behind the scenes is probably a bit of a dick. Or there are people, and then like to the media, I know that there are people at the Bills organization, like not the football people, but like the administrative people that are not fans of him. And I think that trickles down into other people's thoughts. And then they maybe write a little bit about that, and kind of it gets a little bit in their heads to write about this. Well, this person doesn't like him. So there just hasn't been much. And I just think, again, it's a bit of an inferiority complex. Inferiority. I can't say it. I think it's too late right now. But like, I think it's a little bit of that. Like, what is there? There's not much evidence out there. There's not.
I agree. You know, I'm not going to sit here and say I got all these Bill sources and all, but I will say I know a couple people, and I definitely have at least a casual relationship with a couple players. And I've never heard anyone say that they don't like Stefon, players I'm talking about, or that they've said, you know, on the down low, dude wants out. You know what I mean? I never heard anything like that. I don't know. It's just it's almost like a mystery to me. And maybe he's doing what he wants to do. Like I said, these cryptic tweets that he says all the time, or not, you know, coming to Buffalo's defense when his brother was kind of bashing the organization a little bit last year. It's stuff like that that makes you wonder. But I guess at the end of the day, who really cares? The wildest conspiracy theory I've heard, well, maybe it's not the wildest, maybe there's some teeth to it, is that the Bills made a concerted effort offensively to not give him the football as much. Down the numbers dictated that last year, but you know, some people say maybe that wasn't an accident.
There was a football guy
they're preparing for life without Stefon Diggs, is what I'm saying.
I forgot who it was. There was an ESPN guy, I think it was, who said that he thought their philosophy, they were purposely like trying to like phase him out a little bit from watching the film. And I don't know, man. I'm at the point to where I am not going to stroke out about it. I'm just chill. I know the content people want to do that. Sure. I get it. I'm not going to read too much into into that. I think there are agendas around, and I'm not going into it. He declared it. Watched the Super Bowl week and his interviews.
Agreed.
He seemed to like it. I think.
Agreed. And you bring up a good point too, and I think that's very fair. I think Stefon's a guy. If he's got something to say, he's going to say it. And I think if he truly wanted out, Like,
Yeah, he would have
really
leaked it to
out.
someone. Yeah, he would have.
It would be out there. It would be out there.
Yeah, Justina Anderson would have something like, Diana Rossini, whatever, someone would have had it.
I think his contract is a big complication. Do you think if his contract was, say, much easier to get out of this year for the Bills, just hypothetically, could you see a scenario? Could you see a scenario? Let me ask you this before we get out of here. Could you see a scenario where the Bills draft a wide receiver in the first round? Okay. And then come June, they say, you know what? We're just going to eat a shitload of money right now. We're going to eat this dead cap and we're going to trade Stefon Diggs after June 1st. Do you see that being even a semi-realistic scenario?
No, I don't see. I don't think they would. I think they would need more wide receiver help than that. I don't think you could roll him.
They would also need him to be very public, probably, or even behind closed doors, saying, "Yo, get rid of me. I don't want to be here no more."
No. There'd have to be. I was thinking about this today. It's funny you brought it up, but I was thinking when the Bills traded Stevie Johnson, and they traded Stevie Johnson. I don't know if you remember this. They traded him right. But they traded him right after the Sammy Watkins draft. Like the next day, they traded. So I remember that night thinking to myself, "Holy shit, we got Sammy as 1, Stevie as 2, Mike Williams as 3, Robert Woods as 4." And I was like doing the math in my head. I was like, "That's a fucking legit wide receiving core." And the next day, they're like, "Yeah, peace out, Stevie." And at that point, there wasn't much of a. I don't know. There wasn't a lot of rumors going around from what I remember of him getting dealt, and then he got dealt, and then that kind of hurt their wide receiving core because. And then if you remember, it tanked because a month into the season, Mike Williams rode his bike to the game with his equipment on, and he was late, or whatever the hell that rumor was, and he was gone. And then they were down the woods. Sammy, and I think Chris Hogan was like the third guy, and I was like, man, I remember thinking to myself, thinking back, like, man, if they had just kept that regular core, like we wouldn't. It was freaking deep. So
I'm not gonna lie to you, man. I say they take a receiver in the first round. I'm gonna start thinking a little bit, man. Khalil Shakir goes fourth right away.
I don't know. I don't know why do you know something I don't know? There's something you don't want to say. Like, have you talked to a bartender that knows Diggs and they're like, "Oh, he wants out of here. He came in here drunk," and I don't see the evidence like you're presenting it. That it's going to end.
Evidence.
You just said if they get a wide receiver in the first round, I might think they're going to cut him.
I might be interested.
Because you think Shakir's going to get 100 catches this year if he goes. And Justice Short's going to get 12 touchdowns.
I think the Bills are high on Khalil Shakir. I do. And I know I like Curtis. They like Curtis Samuel. They just gave him good money. You got Stefon Diggs, who is still far and away your best receiver. But then you draft a rookie in the first round. I don't know, man. It can go so many ways. It could be, that's just another weapon for sure. Stefon Diggs, look, it's no foregone conclusion. He's going to be gone after this year because it would still cost them pretty good dead cap money next year. Is his production going to fall off? I don't know. Stefon Diggs to me is like a big mystery. And maybe, again, I admit this openly right now. Maybe I'm reading in too much to a bunch of shit that don't really mean nothing. A couple tweets.
Gossip.
Missing 1 day of mandatory camp or mini camp or whatever.
Yeah, that McDermott messed up because he said he just left and then he screwed that up. I
don't know, man. I do feel Stefon Diggs has lingering beef to some extent with the coaches or the organization, both. Maybe some of the media.
Definitely the media. I don't blame him for that. But,
not a great relationship with them. That's pretty well
again. Known. I think I think you just like drama a little bit too much. I think you like the drama. You like that sort of stuff. There just hasn't been out there, and that's why I'm not going to break my head. Like, I'm just not. I'm not. There's not enough evidence out there for me to go, oh, it's something. I like a good conspiracy theory like the next guy, especially with the Bills, and that sort of stuff. And
it's crazy. This guy's been fucking phenomenal.
You know what?
You haven't sworn today, by the way.
I know. I think I swore a couple different times.
Did you? Well, yeah, you have. Never mind.
Yeah. What I was thinking? I was thinking about this the other day, and I wanted to mention it. Hey, props to Deion Dawkins for trolling Twitter with us thinking he got traded, and
he sort of got me. It's a little.
He got me a little bit. I was like, "Where's he going?" But
I'm like,
I was just thinking of this. You saw the interview he did a couple weeks ago where he was shirtless and he basically buried the Jets. It was hilarious. It was great. And I thought the next day was the combine, and none of the Bills reporters asked McDermott or Beane about that, which I thought was like, come on, like you need to ask that. Now, to credit to Jay Skursky, he did ask the Jets GM about it. And, I forgot what the Jets GM said. He's like, I know my guys. They're good guys. Like, screw this. And I thought it was just like, if Stefon Diggs did an interview where he was shirtless and he said, fuck F the Jets, Sauce Gardner, F him, like he's dirty, there would have been hell. It would not have been like the same as Deion Dawkins. Like, oh, that's so cute. Ha ha ha. Sure. It would have been like, they should get rid of this. There would have been the same media who are just stirring the pot on Stefon Diggs and be like, oh, look at this guy. He's causing shit. They would have asked McDermott 10 questions at the combine all about that interview. If it was Diggs, I would bet my son's tooth fairy money. He doesn't have teeth yet, but I don't know. I thought about that a couple weeks ago when that happened. Like, if because everyone loves Deion. He's a quotable guy. Everyone loves him. He can be here until he's 50 and like be a shitty offensive lineman at the end, and no one's gonna like be like, oh, he's a nice guy. He talks to us. Talks to the media. He's a cool guy with the Bills fans. He's a nice guy. He's cool. He's a good.
Deion Dawkins is the great opposite of what we talk about with Stefon Diggs, and that doesn't make Stefon Diggs any less cool or nice of a person. It's just he's different. He's a little more aloof when it comes to interacting with people like that. At least in a public forum. I mean, who knows? Sure. In that locker room, Stefon might be the class clown for all we know. You know what I'm saying? But like publicly, the shit that Deion does versus how Stefon acts, they're just night and day different. Not that that makes them any worse. I'm just saying it's really different. And by the way, Sauce Gardner, credit to him too, because he tweeted out a picture like a couple days later and he had no shirt on and he looked ripped. And he says, be right back. Got to go do a podcast or something like that with no shirt on. That was actually pretty funny, man.
Let me ask you this, and then I can finally go to bed and sleep for 4 hours until my son wakes me up. If Pat Moran was an NFL player, let's just say we're going to say Pro Bowl caliber, what would be you? How would you be in the media? How would you be on social media? Like, would you be would you be making jokes? Would you be a dick? What would you be? Cocky, arrogant? Like, would you?
I'd be arrogant. You said I'm a Pro Bowl caliber player. I'd let you know it. I would talk shit. I'd be pretty arrant.
You'd be a quote machine. You worked behind the scenes. You'd be pandering to the media so they don't badmouth you.
I don't know that I'd be a quote. Well, I don't know that I would be like a funny quote machine like Deion Dawkins. I would probably be a condescending kind of asshole that a lot of people would just say like, this guy's probably a dick. Remember like Bill Romanowski back in the day, minus the roids?
Oh my
God.
God.
Dick. Dude. That's like kind of how I think.
Remember when he spit at JJ Stokes, Bill Romanowski on Monday Night Football? He was a dickhead, steroided up. That guy was an asshole too. Anyways, all right, can we go now? Finally,
yeah, we're gonna get out of here. But
happy Monday. If Pat might be dead by the time this podcast drops because he'll get alcohol poisoning on St. Patrick's Day. So everyone, say a prayer for him. Because he's gonna be getting drunk. And by the way, that photo that you're showing on the video, why does Brandon Beane look like he's like
it's a cartoon kind of
I don't like this. If I'm gonna be on this podcast, I want different art. Okay, this looks terrible.
All right, so thank you, Joe, for doing the show again. Late here, we take it on Friday, and you always throw me off at the end, man. You can never just let me get my flow at the end. You're gonna.
Well, I'm just saying it because this picture of Brandon Beane's creepy. My God,
I'm going to leave it up. I thank everybody for listening and watching. I'll be back with a new episode, which actually will be taped in a more timely manner.
Have your son draw a picture that's better than this, buddy. Jesus.